Recently, I got into an issue with the versioning of Python libraries in my system. I was always using the global installation of the libraries and never bothered about using the virtual environment, which is a recommended best practice in Python. This headache reinforced the importance of best practices and hence this video. So what is a virtual environment? A virtual environment in Python is a self-contained directory that contains specific Python installation along with its own directories for libraries and scripts. The virtual environment is called virtual because it creates an isolated self-contained environment for running Python applications. It allows for independence from the global Python environment, enabling developers to manage packages and dependencies in a consistent and hassle-free way. So what is the meaning of all those things, definitions which I just spoke about? The meaning is that if in case you have multiple projects on your machine, you can create multiple virtual environment with one virtual environment dedicated to one project. And thereby what would happen is that your dependencies which are there for one project won't affect the other project. And the version which you may be using here for matplotlib may be different from the version which you are using for this specific project. So for every project you have different libraries which you have decided and are using, and they are self-contained in a virtual environment. So this gives us a lot of benefits. Let's see what those benefits are. So the prime benefits which are there are isolation. This we already touched upon. Isolation allows you to isolate your project's dependency from the system-wide Python environment, which helps prevent conflicts and ensures that your project dependencies are not affected by other projects or system updates. Portability is like if in case you have to port your project, you have to give your details, your project, your environment, or you have to switch your machine. You are able to create the same environment very quickly and activate the same environment, same virtual environment in a new machine. Reproducibility. So you can reproduce the exact environment at a different machine as any given point of time. Security. Virtual environments can prevent malicious code from affecting the entire system because this is contained within that virtual environment and thereby the whole system is not affected. So these are the benefits. There are multiple more, but these are the major benefits which are there for virtual environment. Now, how to create the virtual environment? The steps are listed here. The first thing is that you have to create the virtual environment. This is the command. We will see the command in action in some time. Then once it is created, you have to activate the virtual environment. For Windows, this is the command, and for Mac or Linux, this is the command. Then like you do in your Python code, you have the dependent libraries and packages. You can install those libraries and packages in the usual way, which is the pip install. And finally, you can deactivate. You can, when you have done completed the project work, you can deactivate, and need basis you can activate again. So let's say you have deactivated this and you want to go again here, then what you will do is you don't have to create virtual environment again. Virtual environment is already created. So what you have to do is you have to just activate and start working on the project. Now, how can you get the list of packages which are there and create a requirements file out of it? So you can do a pip freeze in the virtual environment and you can get the requirement.txt, and this requirement.txt can be installed on a new environment by the pip install. So this is the command. If in case you have to replicate the same environment, you have to just say pip install -r requirements.txt. So let's create the virtual environment in my machine. So what I'll do is first I'll create a folder. Now I want to create the virtual environment. So I would use the command. So the virtual environment has been created now. So if I have to activate it, I would just say, so this is the command which I shall be using for activating it. Now the virtual environment has been activated. So if I do a pip list, so you can see that there is nothing which is installed. Let's say I install pip install Flask and I install pip install pypdf2. So if I do a pip list now, these are the packages which it had installed. Some of the dependent packages are also installed. So Flask may have some dependencies, and pypdf2 would have some dependencies. Those dependencies are also installed now. If I have to deactivate, I can just say deactivate, and this is closed now. So let me activate it one more time. Now what I'll do is I will create my package listing. And how can I do? By the freeze. So this requirements.txt has been created. If I cat, I can see all these requirements are there in my requirements.txt now. So if I have to create any Python script, I would create it here and then I would execute it inside my virtual environment. And now we can see that we can appreciate the fact that my libraries and dependent packages are isolated from another virtual environment, and these packages are not affecting the whole system. They are affecting only the boundary of that specific virtual environment. Let's say this case where you have to share your environment with your colleague. So what you will do, first you will create the requirements.txt by the freeze which we just saw on the previous slide. Once you have created the requirements.txt, you will share the same to your colleague. The colleague shall create the new virtual environment, and she shall activate the virtual environment, and finally she will install all the requirements which are there in the requirements.txt. Post this, if in case she has the Python scripts, she shall be able to execute those Python scripts and would have exactly same environment as you. Another thing important here is that when you are version controlling your virtual environment, you would be version controlling the code files and the requirements.txt files. But remember that you have to exclude the directory, virtual environment directory, because all those package information you don't want to source control or version control. So this one you can add to the git ignore. So lastly, if in case you have to delete your virtual environment, only two simple steps. First one is you deactivate the environment, and second one is the delete the virtual environment folder. So the remove command in the Mac or Linux and rmdir command on the Windows. Thank you very much.